Hello everyone, happy Mardi Gras. I'm Mike Grinker. This is another video in my Politics and the Law series. Today I'm going to be talking about John Locke and classical liberalism. Now, classical liberalism is distinct from contemporary social liberalism and more in line with right libertarianism or traditional conservatism. Of course, these views are very distinct from the neoconservative focus on imperialism and Christian influence over the law, or from the contemporary populist nationalistic conservatism, which seems to have forgotten about Locke's emphasis on equal rights. To be clear, the notion that, for instance, women are inferior to men, or that folks of European descent are superior to those of any other ethnicity, is not consistent with the ideas of classical liberalism. The question is, are the ideas of classical liberalism, as modernly understood, consistent with Locke's views? I'd argue no. Now, of course, there were many, many more influences beyond Locke in the formulation of classical liberalism. He was writing before Adam Smith, Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, and before contemporary free market capitalism really existed. And he was writing specifically in opposition to the idea of absolute monarchy. Now, the basis for his ideas, of course, the natural rights, life, liberty, the pursuit of property, are founded on the notion that all individuals are equal. The emphasis is on individual rights. This is a problem because the emphasis of contemporary free market proponents is on corporate rights. The idea that the protection of property is consistent with the protection of wealth. In fact, there's a quote from Kathleen G. Donahue: "To the vast majority of American classical liberals, laissez-faire did not mean no government intervention at all. On the contrary, they were more than willing to see government provide tariffs, railroad subsidies, and internal improvements, all of which benefited producers. What they condemned was intervention on behalf of the consumer." The issue here, of course, being that consumers are individuals. Workers are individuals. Citizens are individuals. Nowadays, we believe that corporations are individuals too. They certainly have individual rights when it comes to political influence and campaign contribution. But the fact remains that, like government, corporations are comprised of individuals, any of whom are capable of infringing on other individuals' rights. The problem with a completely unregulated free market is that it effectively places these corporations in the state of nature, much like Locke's argument against princes, who, by virtue of being above the law, could do what they wanted with impunity, and the folks to whom they did those things had no legal recourse. Today we do have legal recourse, of course, but our recourse is a function of our wealth, of which a corporation obviously has much greater. Locke also discussed the principle of spoilage, or as much and as good, the idea that one has the right to property to the extent that one is able to put their labor into that property, the part of the commons, and produce something greater from it. If somebody, for instance, has an entire farmland, can't harvest it, and it spoils, this goes beyond that person's right to property. This food that's going to go to waste becomes a property of the commons. We see something similar happening nowadays with houses. When you have more houses lying empty than you have people with homes, does this constitute spoilage? I'd say it does, because not only is this land lying fallow, so to speak, and not being used to its greatest extent, but these people also, by virtue of not having a secure place to live in, are unable to exercise their economic abilities to the fullest extent. It's a loss overall. Allowing corporations, allowing wealthy individuals to be outside of the law and in a state of nature is contrary to Locke's ideals. When he talked about an individual, he wasn't talking about institutions, such as monarchies, churches, or corporations. He was talking about people. And when he talked about the pursuit of property, he did not mean to imply that the more property one has, the more rights one has. The modern notion of classical liberalism has gone away from Locke, and I feel has gone away from the basic principles of individual rights and individual liberties.